So it's been a minute, but finally time to put together my race recap of the Paris to Ancaster race that I did on April 28th. Lots happened since then, so it's taken me a little bit of time to get the video put together. Most namely, I did back-to-back races. So I did the Paris to Ancaster race, the Breve course, on Sunday, April 29th, and then the following Saturday, 1 week later, I was in the Substance Project's Scrappy Badger first race of their gravel series season. So I kind of log jammed myself to the front part of the season or season start. But it was all worthwhile and a hell of a lot of fun. So my start with Paris to Ancaster bike race was 3 years ago, when I was starting to put together a little bit more design to what I was going to do in my biking season. A friend of mine had actually suggested the Paris to Ancaster, being an epic race known all over Canada and even parts of the States, as one to definitely try as my first race. I'd never done a bike race up until that point. So my first foray into cycle racing and gravel racing specifically was to enter in a race that is known widely across Canada as a must-do event, and a lot of people go and attend, so I thought I would sign up. 3 years ago I was spoiled though. The weather for the weekend ended up being phenomenal. I rode in 24-degree weather, I want to say, maybe even warmer than that. No rain whatsoever, beautiful sunny day like it is today, and no wind. So what can be a very, very challenging course really broke down into the part that it's most known for, which was the mud chute, which I think is pre-soaked. Legend has that it does get pre-soaked whether it is rainy or dry, so it may have human assist in making sure that it is a challenging traverse down that muddy culvert. But I was spoiled that year because the conditions were perfect for me to try out my first race and not have really any challenge. Fast forward to last year, and a year that became epically known as a muddy battle to finish, and I did finish. But there are sections of the course that I told friends that, in essence, looked like charging the beaches at Normandy. It was just a muddy mess. And I saw a lot of people, unfortunately, walking out with their bikes in their hands, derailleurs hanging from their bikes. My friend Terry, who races tandem, he's blind and he races tandem, they lost their entire drivetrain as well as their braking system. So as he told me that most portions of the course, he ended up having to brake Fred Flintstone style, for those of you old enough to know the reference. But last year was an epic battle. It was hypothermic cold, as they said. So freezing and cold, rainy day was not pleasant. It was definitely type 2 fun, but yet again I did finish. That finish was probably about 38 minutes longer than my first year, just because of the sheer nature of having to walk out a lot of the muddy sections, and being able to hoof it took a lot more time. Fast forward to this year, and the forecast coming up to the weekend was looking really, really good. It actually looked like it could be like what we're seeing and feeling today. However, as Southwestern Ontarians know, that can change, and it can change within 12 hours, and it did. And so as I got ready for the race and met up with my friend Andrew, shout out Cardiac Cyclist, we started to feel the rain start, and it started and continued on the entire race day. Now the good news about that was that we were much warmer, so it was a lot more bearable to take, but it did mean that a muddy course would be again the section of focus for any of the riders trying to be able to finish. So I didn't record the entire ride because I don't think that would be very entertaining, because you'll hear a lot of my Clydesdale panting as I struggled with some of the climbs. But the main components of the race really come down to you get a good section on the Brantford to Hamilton rail trail. I think that's what it's called. Very similar to what I'm used to riding on the Guelph to Godrich rail trail up near our trailer. So that section is always a lot of fun and very pleasant for me because it's very reminiscent of what I'm used to. But there are a couple of mineral chutes, steep declines that you go down that are very muddy and very challenging to descend. There are some grueling climbs that you have, but the race ends as you come up Mineral Springs Lane, I think it's called, or Mineral Springs Road. There is an epic climb right at the very end of the race to make sure, if you haven't already not enjoyed it, that there's that last little segment. And you climb this steep climb, which I don't think that I have start to finish rode that climb yet in my 3 years of doing it, but I've seen people do it, and my respect to them, and you have my admiration. But the reality is, at the end of the day, there's no shame in walking when you see yourself walking just as fast as people are huffing and puffing and biking. But I did manage to ride up the last half of it and cross the finish line. So this year's result was a little bit better than last year by about, I want to say, 13 minutes. The course was a little bit longer. I think they shortened it up last year. So I was really happy with my result because, in essence, I came close to pulling off the fastest time, given that the first 2 years were a different distance. I don't have the mathematician ability to extrapolate it out, but I feel like my best performance came this year. Big thing that they did this year, which was really, really helpful, was they had made some changes to the course, and particularly the one farmer's field that was the most challenging, most muddy last year, and I think did the most damage to bikes and crushed a lot of souls. Ended up having gravel driveway or gravel road installed through the piece that we cut through their private property. So kudos to them for adding it in. I'm sure they needed it, but it was a huge help, and I'll show you a little piece of my joy in finding out where that section had been fixed. Made a huge difference in how the race rode.
Oh, thank God!
The big thing that I will always say about the race is be prepared to potentially have to replace parts when you get done, and when you get home, make sure you wash it if you didn't take advantage of the wash stations that they have there at the race. The reality is you probably could use that wash plus a secondary one, as it was taking me the better part of a week after to get my bike cleaned out. In year 2, I fully toasted my front brake pads and had to replace those. This year, wisely leading up to the race, knowing that my ones that I had replaced last year might be a little bit worn, and thankfully I did check them because they were worn. I ended up replacing them right before the race. But I am happy to say that in 3 years of the race, I have not had any damage to my bike, knock on wood. But I know that I am lucky in saying that because I know a lot of people that didn't have that experience. This year being the 30th version of the race, I wanted to throw out a little bit of thanks because of how well the race is run and how much help there is from volunteers and the organizers. It is just a very well-oiled machine that you can tell has been around for a few years. They know what to do and when to do it, and there isn't an element of the race that left me wanting to understand more or needing explanation. They do such a great job, and my 3 short years of racing, it has been amazing to see someone who could walk in never having done any race and not being any part of like the cycling race community to walk in and be able to do that race all by myself without really knowing where to go and what to do, and being able to find my way and finish and have a lot of fun. But I think that all comes down to how well it is run and the team that they have put together. So kudos to them for putting together such a great race that is so much fun. And I can tell you without hesitation, about halfway into each race, every one of my 3 years, I've thought, why am I doing this? And very quickly, I will be back again next year, because it is definitely type 2 fun, not always the part that feels really great when you're doing it, but you're happy as hell when you're done to say that you've done it and got it done in the way that you did. So kudos to the organizers for putting together such a great event for 30 long years of history and making something so epic that has been synonymous with gravel racing in our part of Ontario, and probably in the larger part of Canada as well. In terms of my bike setup, for the last 2 years I've been riding a GT grade Carbon Expert, full carbon frame, a bit of a mixture of Shimano setup 105 on the back end, GRX brakes and shifters, It's been a great bike for me. What's new to me this year is I have 3 different wheel sets, so I've been riding them depending on the type of terrain I'm riding and the course that I'm riding. And for this event, knowing that it can kind of be a bit carnivorous to bikes, I decided to go with my Mavic aluminum rims, 700C size, and I added on my Ultra Dynamic Ocava wheels, which are a good mixture of grip and a little bit of speed rolling resistance for them, which they were absolutely the perfect wheel for that course. There was only one spot that I slipped out a little bit, but just keeping the wheels moving, I was able to soldier through that section. And quite frankly, any one of the wheels that I have would have had the exact same problem, I think. Now, for how it went this year for me. I was really proud of my result. I got off the bike way less than I did last year. I wasn't having to clear mud out, and as much as I would have preferred it to not be raining and to get another one of those sunny years, I'm really happy that I was able to ride a lot more sections than I did last year, get off the bike a lot less. And when it came down to riding the Brantford to Hamilton rail trail section, that's the part where I really get to throw down what I practice and ride a lot, and I was able to peck off a lot of riders and pass them, which made me feel really good. And in the end, my time ended up being 2 hours and I want to say 17 minutes, somewhere in that realm, which was significantly faster than the year before. That's what happens when you don't have to do a lot of walking. But it was significantly faster, and I felt I rode a lot of the sections that I normally have challenged with a lot better than I have in the past. Definitely can feel the impact of the fitness that I've had this winter through Zwifting indoors. It's made a big difference in my ability to climb hills, and so we'll see what that does for the rest of the racing season. But overall, I walk away from the Paris to Ancaster experience riding the Breve course this year happy with seeing a lot of friends and being able to hang out with them for the day, get my pulled pork sandwich and my beer at the end of the race that was waiting for me. And with the results, again, happy to do what I did. This year, they've widened the field, so I was going against 45 to 54-year-olds, and I fall kind of at the latter end of that. So I was racing against some hitters at the younger age category, but I'm still proud of where my results landed up. What really surprised me about bike racing is I never thought that I would actually like it. A lot of the riding that I was doing up until the first race that I ever did was just solo rides to go out and be by myself, to get in some fitness, but to have that time to process, during COVID, as most people were, to process all that was going on, but to get outside and get some exercise in. And it became a very personal thing that I would do by myself. Trying out racing, I thought, what the hell? And what I found is there's a whole community of people there that think and feel and act the same way that you do. And they don't start to trail off when you talk about bikes, as some of you may recognize with your own family members and friends. But the reality is that you find a community of like-minded people that are just necessarily not in it to win it, but to have fun. And I have met some really great friends through cycling, starting with the Paris to Ancaster race, but I've also met people at other races as well, and just love the fact that everybody's supportive of each other, very inclusive. In fact, many of the races that I ride in now have a very strong penchants for making sure that it is inclusive and diverse in terms of their field and how they allow everyone to feel that they can come and play. So I really appreciate that. So this is my first ever full ride recap and kind of official foray into the YouTube world. I'd love to know your thoughts and feedback on the video. If there's anything you'd like to see different, or what you liked, or what I could do more of, I'd love to know. And as everyone says in the YouTube world, follows, likes, all of those things help. Give a like, give a follow, and subscribe if you're so inclined. Thanks for watching. Really great to have you here. And like I say, it's all about bikes here. So until the next time I saddle up for a rip, catch you on the next ride.
Yeah. What's up? All right.